This week has seen Tanzania's parliament officially replace a fierce critic of President John Magufuli, who was expelled in June over absenteeism and ethical issues. And a cross-section of Nigerians online have criticized attacks on South African businesses in parts of the country. The reprisal attacks, according to reports, were in the commercial capital of Lagos and parts of Ibadan in the southwest region. This is Africa Focus.
Women activists assure women that they will continue to achieve equality, justice, and freedom for all women. A state-run rehab center in Ethiopia offers free services to patients to encourage them to give up the leafy stimulant. And South Africa Mine plans to contribute significantly to the global supply.
I'm Lenny Rashid, and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Before we get into the main stories, let's take a look at the news that made the headlines around the continent this week.
Angry protesters loot alleged foreign-owned shops during unrest in the Johannesburg suburb of Toffontein in a new wave of violence targeting foreign nationals. Chaos dominated the Joburg CBD amid tension between locals, foreigners, and the police caught in the middle. A bystander was hit by a brick near the Johannesburg Art Gallery. Social media observers have alleged the bystander was shot, though sources close to the scene confirmed with police that it was actually a brick that wounded the bystander. Police were still at loggerheads with community members. The situation remained tense in Toffontein, with most shops in and around Johannesburg remaining closed. Foreign shop owners took some of the remaining items left by looters for safekeeping. From Fortsburg to Toffontein, Mayfair and the Johannesburg CBD, shops were shut as protesters continued their violent reaction to foreign-owned shops. More police were deployed in an effort to bring calm to these areas around Johannesburg. Rubber bullets were fired at locals allegedly looting. This was followed by numerous arrests, while shops owners were moved to places of safety. Meanwhile, Police Minister Becky Chele went to the Johannesburg CBD to provide an update on the looting of shops and burning of businesses in and around the city. He described the situation around Johannesburg as a national crisis while conducting a walkabout to see the extent of damage caused as well as to assess the police response.
Moroccan mourners attend the funeral of those killed when a river burst its banks and flooded a village football pitch where a game was being played in South Morocco. The victims included a 17-year-old boy and 6 elderly men attending the match in the village of Tizert in Taroudant region. Searchers had rescued one man who was injured by the flood and were looking for another missing person. The river overflowed and submerged the pitch where an amateur football tournament was underway. 8 men who took refuge in the changing rooms were swept away by the flood waters. Photographs and videos shared on social media showed muddy waters carrying away people who had clambered on top of a building flattened by the flooding. Morocco's National Weather Service had warned of the risk of stormy rains on the afternoon of the floods in several provinces. The heavy downpour followed a dry spell, making the floods more violent, local media reported. Floods are common in Morocco. In late July, 15 people died in a landslide caused by flash floods on a road south of Marrakesh. In 2014, floods killed around 50 people and caused considerable damage in the south of the country. A study published in 2015 pointed to multiple failures in infrastructure, maintenance, prevention, warning, and emergency management.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres arrived in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, expressing solidarity with a region ravaged by violence and Ebola epidemic. The Secretary General started his 3-day tour of Africa's largest country in Goma, the capital of the North Kivu province, which is trying to roll back a major epidemic of Ebola that has claimed more than 2,000 lives since August last year. Guterres was received by Leila Zerogu, his special representative in DR Congo. The two did not shake hands in line with health protocols aimed at curbing the spread of the highly infectious and very often fatal disease. Guterres said he had come to express his support with the armed forces of DRC in the fight against terrorism, which represents a threat not only for Congo but the whole of Africa. The demobilization of militias is a priority of MONUSCO, the UN peacekeeping mission in the country, which has been present in the DRC Congo since 1999. A total of 130 militias and armed groups roam the North and South Kivu provinces of DR Congo. Containment efforts have been hindered by the conflict in the country's east, as well as attacks on health workers tackling Ebola. Although the UN has closed some bases and cut civilian staff, Guterres said a strategic revision was underway in order to make it a more useful still to the Congolese people in terms of security but also politically. The government blames the violence in large part on the Islamist-rooted Allied Democratic Forces ADF group that rose in western Uganda.
The burial of Ivorian singer DJ Arafat, star of the hugely popular music style Coupe de Calle, who died this month in a motorbike accident, was disrupted by clashes between the police and fans. Tens of thousands of fans gave him a spectacular send-off at the country's main stadium early Saturday. The overnight funeral concert at the 35,000-capacity Félix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium in Abidjan began Friday evening and ended early Saturday when Arafat's body was brought to a final farewell. Placed in the center of the football match, it drew wild applause. Then the mood turned somber with fans bursting into tears. Throughout the night, A-list African stars such as Davido and Fally Ipupa sang for the music sensation, who died aged 33 on August 12th after a motorbike crash in Ivory Coast's main city, Abidjan. Before the ceremony, Ivorian Culture Minister Maurice Bandeman conferred on him the National Order of Cultural Merit for his immense contribution to the artistic radiance of Ivory Coast. DJ Arafat was one of the most popular African musicians in the Francophone world and had been referred to as the king of Coupe de Calle, or cut and run, an Ivorian form of dance and music.
In a press conference held in the Umma Party's headquarters in Omdurman, Sudan, members of the protest organizers for the No to Women's Oppression initiative assured that they will continue to achieve equality, justice, and freedom for all women.
The women activists also called for adopting the policy, a basic component within the Forces for Freedom and Change.
Without the presence of women in decision-making positions, we present two demands. Firstly, we want to be the sixth bloc, like any other party that became a bloc. Secondly, we demand participation and not representation. We want the participation of all women in all the decision-making.
Sudan's new joint civilian-military ruling body, which is meant to guide the country through 39 months of transition to full civilian rule, was sworn in. Out of its 6 civilian members, 2 are women, although only one was included in the list of nominees initially put forward by the protest camp. While the opposition alliance's chief negotiator in the run-up to Sudan's landmark political deal was a woman, Ibtissam al-Sanhouri, women were poorly represented in the various negotiating committees.
Our struggle continues in order to achieve equality, justice, and freedom for women, and therefore the No to Women's Oppression initiative reinforces its demands for the participation of women in the positions of decision-making within the Alliance for Freedom and Change and all the transitional period organizations, considering it is a basic right.
The initiative called for redress for women victims of human rights violations and victims of arbitrary dismissal and oppression, and to address the issues of displaced women and refugees.
We demand the consideration of the No to Women's Oppression initiative as a main component in the ranks of the Alliance for Freedom and Change, and its representation in all the organizational structures, committees, and positions of decision-making within the Alliance in order to defend women's demands. We hope that the new government will take our interest and guarantee the rights of Sudanese women.
In the Nigerian region of Plateau State, temperate and tropical weather conditions makes it possible to produce all sorts of crops, including exotic ones such as coffee. Coffee farmers in the region believe the crop has huge potentials and when harnessed properly could become an economic asset for the region. But this is hardly achievable because most of the farmers have to face several challenges, including diseases, lack of takers, insecurity, or poor yields.
At 68, Christopher Pam Chai has remained loyal to coffee in over 5 decades. He has evolved from a subsistence coffee farmer to a commercial farmer in the Vom area of Jos South local government area of Plateau State, where many unofficially refer to as Nigeria's headquarters of the coffee Arabica beans.
I'm a farmer. I farm vegetables and crops like coffee. I process coffee. But I had to stop processing coffee because of the profit margins and the accessibility to market. And so I would like the government to come in and help us local processors and farmers of coffee to source this market outside of the state.
Plateau's temperature and tropical weather condition makes it possible to produce all sorts of crops, including exotic ones as coffee, strawberries, and other vegetables. Coffee can grow in 9 local government areas of the Upper Plateau, which include the northern senatorial districts and some parts of the central district.
I planted coffee 2 times, and because of insecurity, in fact, they were destroyed by herdsmen.
Chai started growing coffee in 1963, but his oldest coffee tree was planted by his father in 1959, following his encounter with the European miners who settled in the Vaughan area. He is today one of the few farmers that still have faith in the crop, even as many factors have discouraged others. Right now, farmers in Jos North, Jos South, Riom, Barkini Ladi, and Mangu local government areas are producing the coffee beans, though in low quantity.
I know there are even more than 50 or 50-something people whom were members within the coffee, but in fact, they destroyed, they went back to other crops.
Across the country, coffee is known to grow in Mambila Plateau of Sarduana local government area of Taraba State and Obudu in Cross River State. But one cannot compare the quantum of coffee beans that comes out of each of those local governments when compared to 9 local government areas in Plateau State. Ethiopia, where the coffee Arabica originated from, is today the biggest exporter of coffee in Africa and 5th in the world. Coffee also accounts for 22% of the country's commodity exports, according to the International Food Policy Research Institute.
The logistics problems involved in transporting these products outside of the state are challenges that we want the government to come in and meet the association for them to lend a helping hand to us.
The few commercial coffee farmers in Plateau State believe the crop has huge potential and when harnessed properly could form part of the state's economic mainstream. Presently, this is hardly achievable because most of the farmers are peasant and have to contend with several challenges including diseases, lack of off-takers, insecurity, poor yield, as well as how to water the plant during the dry season. Coffee is a perennial crop and grows twice a year when the plant is properly nurtured and watered throughout the year. But right now, the crop is only harvested once a year in Plateau State.
Ethiopia is a country that produces KHAT, a shrub whose leaves are chewed to obtain a stimulating effect. In this detoxification center, patients talk about the harms of this drug. Take a look.
These men are all in rehab because of KHAT. The plant is known for its stimulating effect, and chewing it is common in Ethiopia. But its consumption can lead to other addictions.
I've been in addiction like for the past 15 years but with a lot of addictive substances like shots, like cigarette, like marijuana.
At this state-run rehab center, services are free and patients are encouraged to give up the leafy stimulant, a rare approach in a region where few try to tackle the controversial habit. While banned in many countries, in Ethiopia, chewing KHAT is legal and widely seen as a cultural activity. Users sometimes turn to other drugs to dull the plant's amphetamine-like effects.
The whole night they can read. Most of them, they start chewing KHAT for reading, for increasing capacity of work, for increasing the performance in study in different works.
In this district of the capital, excitement peaks when a truck full of KHAT finally arrives. Many chew it on the street and refuse to believe these leaves can lead to other addictions.
That's not true. The people who say that were already addicted to alcohol and other drugs before they started using KHAT.
Often referred to as green gold, KHAT is Ethiopia's second biggest export behind coffee, and its domestic consumption is growing. Campaigns by local civil society groups have failed to result in a ban.
Coming up after the break.
New NBA Academy trains the best young basketballers in Africa.
Africa Focus will be right back. Don't touch that dial. Keep it switch. Welcome back to Africa Focus. The new NBA Academy trains the best young basketballers in Africa, the NBA's first ever academy on the continent. Let's take a look.
These are the best young basketballers in Africa. Selected through rigorous local scouting programs and elite skills camps, they have come from across the continent to develop that talent at the NBA's African Academy. This is the NBA's first training centre on the continent. Based in Senegal, it opened its doors to young players last year.
The aim is to develop basketball, to develop the NBA across the continent, because we have had, as I was telling you before, a long history of great players that have come from this continent who have made history in the NBA.
After 2 to 4 years training, they'll be hoping to score a place at an American university. Ambitious and hardworking, these players are put through their paces. Only the best will make it.
It'd be great to play for any team in the NBA. Anyone in the NBA franchise would be great, but Lakers would be the best, yeah.
The Academy is supporting these young players academically as well, to prepare them in case they don't manage to turn their sporting passion into a career.
What the NBA has done, it's made a conscious decision to make sure we give them leadership skills, time management skills, life skills. All the things that are necessary in order to be successful. So it's not just about basketball.
The NBA recently announced the creation of the Basketball Africa League in 2020. This championship will give the young players more opportunities at a basketball career when they leave the academy.
Cabo Delgado in the north of Mozambique is one of the country's poorest regions, and the site is little known for Islamist insurgency, which has been sowing terror for close to 2 years.
Burnt-out houses, food supplies reduced to ash, and villagers left hungry and fearing for their lives. For nearly 2 years now, the residents of the North Mozambican province of Cabo Delgado have been living in fear of attacks carried out by militant Islamists.
They came out of nowhere and burnt my house. Now we live with nothing. We have nothing left. We live like this now.
The attacks are unclaimed, and those who carry them out remain largely unidentified.
I don't know who they were, it was night, but I can tell you that there were a lot of them. There were young people, and women too.
Over 300 people have died in these attacks since October 2017. Many of the survivors have since fled, like Ayuba and his family, to seek refuge with relatives who live elsewhere.
We live here, not in the house back there. We live here.
6 people live in this hut, a family wrenched away from the fields that normally provide their livelihood.
I urge the government to do all it can to put a stop to this war, so that we can get back to a normal life.
Local authorities say they are concerned by the situation and are doing all they can to secure the region. But for the Bishop of Pemba, that is not enough. He recently published a letter criticising the government for its lack of action and communication.
Diga quem é, mostra quem é e atua, para que os ataques parem.
Say who they are, show them, and act to stop the attacks. This is our request, that the authorities go deep because the poor are dying.
Porque estão morrendo os pobres.
Those who have almost nothing are losing the little they have and losing their lives, and we cannot let that happen.
The Islamic State group claimed 2 of the attacks that have taken place in 2019, but police and security experts doubt the veracity of these claims. While authorities have arrested hundreds of suspected attackers, the jihadist phenomenon afflicting northern Mozambique remained steeped in mystery.
Rare earth minerals are used in everything from mobile phones to electric cars, and Steenkromskull mine in South Africa's Western Cape holds the highest grade of deposits in the world. Once it starts production, this unassuming mine has big plans to contribute significantly to the global supply.
It's old, doesn't look like much, and is located well out the way in an arid part of western South Africa. But the Steenkromskull mine may be about to become piping hot mining property, thanks to some of the world's highest grade deposits of rare earth metals.
About 14% of this rock is rare earths. That is an extraordinarily high grade, and we don't know anything like it on the planet. So Steenkromskull will become a very important source of rare earths for global industry.
The mine, located about 350 kilometers north of Cape Town, used to produce thorium, a component of nuclear fuel, in the 1950s and 60s. But now it's been found to also have monazite ore, which contains extremely high-grade rare earth minerals, including neodymium and praseodymium, elements vital to cutting-edge industries.
South Africa is certainly on par with any other country that would lay claim to being able to supply rare earth elements to meet this increasing demand. So yes, it would mean a great deal to our country to be able to supply, and we are in a position to do so as long as those markets are favorable.
Rare earth elements are a group of 17 minerals unique for their magnetic, catalytic, and electrochemical properties, and manufacturing uses range from strong alloys for aircraft engines, hybrid cars, consumer electronic devices, and even medical equipment. For the first time since 1985, China last year became a net importer of some rare earths for its industrial needs, while the government cracked down on illegal exploration and production. Steenkromskull mine could just be the answer to growing world demand for rare earth minerals.
And the economic significance is great. If you take the market value of the rare earths in this mine that we presently know, it's something like 20 billion rand. It's a very valuable resource for this area, for the community, and for the country.
No mines for rare earth elements currently operate in South Africa, but the government confirms the presence of yet-to-be-tapped tech minerals. Steenkromskull has secured all the license required to start mining. It plans an initial production of 2,700 tons a year, once funding of $150 million has been secured, with further plans to expand.
On Africa Focus, we love hearing from you, so make sure you get interactive with us on our various social media pages. Remember, you can view this program along with a wide array of other programs on DSTV channel 268, on Azam TV channel 138, and on Zuku channel 53. On behalf of the entire team here on Africa Focus, thank you for keeping us company on this exciting journey. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Keep it switch.